Join Gator great Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition. It's PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It is Monday. We'll have JC. We'll also have Scott Carter from FloridaGators.com. It's Florida-Georgia week, folks. Got a lot to talk about. A lot of good college football, NFL, some exciting stuff. And, yeah, that's about it. If you missed it last night, which I did because I went to bed early, Cowboys lose again. One of JC's teams loses again. And 49ers put it on 30-24 or something along those lines. So let's go to the Titan Number hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. JC, what hat do you have on today? Is that a Lions hat?
That'd be the Roar. And, you know, the Lions just keep rolling along. Jahmyr Gibbs, big day yesterday as usual. And Detroit is just on a real bender right now. But they play in the best division in football in the NFL, if you ask me. And next week it's at Green Bay. I saw Green Bay yesterday played Jacksonville. I was at that game. And they do some nice things at Green Bay, but the Jags are right there with them. But this division is really good. And you know, the Bears got to be sitting themselves thinking, why is it so hard for us to really be consistently good? And when they let that Hail Mary go by yesterday, it just totally reminded me of when you threw a Hail Mary for the Bears. But the difference is that the Bears, when they were trying to defend their Hail Mary pass yesterday, were waving to the crowd. There was video of the defensive guys pandering.
It was only one guy doing that, I believe.
Well, all it took was one guy to miss an assignment, and the Redskins and the Commanders pulled it off. But listen, I think the Bears are better, but I know the Lions, Packers, and Vikings are good teams, and that's a hell of a division. And it's just a tragic loss for Jacksonville because that could have gotten them some sort of life. But they lost Christian Kirk. I think they lost a couple other players, and their season is effectively done. It's too bad.
Yeah, I mean, watching the Redskins and the Bears, boy, you got to be excited for both those teams with your quarterback play. Those two guys are going to be unbelievable.
They're going to be great players for those teams. And Washington is just, this has been a moribund, dead franchise, and here they are back into life. And while I was at the Jazz game yesterday, QB, I saw the bleachers going up in the end zone as they're getting ready for Florida, Georgia. And, there's going to be 80,000 people in that stadium for that game because they add seating capacity for the Florida game. And, the more you go up there, and I've been going up there quite a bit, the easier it is to kind of get around because you kind of know where Adams Street is and where Duval Street is and where all these places are where you can actually park. And it's not as bad. But if you don't go up there more than once a year, QB, it's a quagmire. You really have problems. So you have to go early, Gator fans. You got to go early. But I'm suspecting that the Florida fans that go to the game they already know.
Most of the people that go to the game have been to that game a million years.
Yeah, that's right. So this is going to be quite a spectacle on Saturday. I'm glad the Gators are playing better. I'm glad defensively they seem to be a lot more physical and playing better. And hopefully, we'll see these guys and DJ Lagway. A lot of people talking about him up in Jacksonville. I heard a lot of folks talking about DJ Lagway, and that gives them hope in this game. So.
Well, back to the Hail Mary.
Sure.
I'm a big believer in blitzing the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
So he has to throw it quickly instead of rushing three. So we'll see. Some teams do that. Some people don't. It just depends on what their coaching philosophy is.
He threw it 65 yards, QB. He stood on the
That's what I'm saying. If you blitz him, he's going to have to throw it 5 yards.
Or shorter than 65, right?
Yeah. Andy giving us this day in sports. He says, Shane, on this day in 2001, you threw for 3 touchdowns. Mike Brown had a pick 6 in overtime, and the Bears beat the 49ers 37-31. Wow, that was on this day. Thanks for letting me know that, Andy.
Oh, you don't remember that, QB?
No, I do, but hell, I didn't know it was on this day. JC, what do you think? I got a calendar over here?
But you actually remember throwing 3 touchdowns against the 49ers?
I'm just reading what Andy said.
I know.
But yeah, I did throw 3 touchdowns, JC.
Okay, I was just wondering if you remember that. Okay.
I mean, Andy's a Bear fan. All right.
Poor Andy. I'm sorry, Andy.
Tony says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, looking forward to the Florida Georgia game, even though we have no chance. Well,
listen, how many times I can tell you this is true. In the 70s and 80s, not that matters anymore, but Georgia would go into that game with no chance. And the Gators were a much higher ranked team in many cases during Charlie Pell's era as Gator head coach and Doug Dickey's. And by God, they couldn't beat Georgia. Hell no. And yet they were much higher ranked than Georgia at the time. And Vince Dooley pulled off his little magic tricks. And watching those games back then, QB, you remember, I don't know if you watched much of what happened back in the 80s. And
I did not. I was worried about the Egg Bowl, JC.
Their offensive playbook may have had in that game between the two teams, about 10 plays. That's
yeah. It was 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
But not just that, it was so unimaginative and so dull. But it was the way football was played back then, and that's what kept Georgia around. And then Coach Spurrier shows up and shows people how you move the ball down the field and put it in the end zone, and Georgia had no answer. And he beat them, I think, 16 out of 7, or I don't know, 10 out of 11 times or something. So it was a great time for the Gators.
Tony on Facebook Live says he was down there Saturday, I guess, near the stadium. He paid homage to the Shane Matthews Bridge. Although the Matthews Bridge, they spell it incorrectly.
They do. And I think that's not the bridge behind you, is it? No, that looks like
that's the main street, or they got a blue one.
Yeah. Red one is the Hart Bridge.
Maroon one, and I can't remember the other color. But all
right.
So we got a couple of YouTubers I got to get to. Rob says, YouTube brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Watching Auburn take Kentucky to the woodshed made me realize how fraudulent we are. You were right, Shane. Look, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I mean, we all have our opinions, but not one team Sanford has a losing record.
Yeah.
Kentucky has a losing record. I don't think I said the other day, I don't think Kentucky will win another game. Mississippi State will not win another game other than they will beat UMass probably.
Right.
And who else did we beat, JC?
You beat the Bulldogs and the Wildcats.
We can't even remember who we beat. Anyway, all of them have losing records. Right is the point.
What the hell's wrong with us? Why don't we know? I mean, we do know, but we just don't. It's not.
JC, I've been hitting the head a lot. You have not. So
I haven't.
I have an excuse.
Yeah. Okay, this is asinine.
UCF is who we beat.
Yeah,
and they got clobbered again.
And we all have this great saying that Vegas knows. Vegas knows. They're so good. They're so good. They clearly didn't know enough about UCF, and how they had BYU as an underdog in that game made it the easiest pick I've seen in picking football games in probably over a year. It was such a bad number, giving BYU points, and they never really trailed in that game, I don't think. So that was a terrible handicapping job in Vegas. If I'm running the MGM Sportsbook or whatever, Caesar's Palace, and
it doesn't make sense.
I'd be raising hell right now. I'd be killing that guy.
Joseph says Florida's losses aren't looking so bad as the year goes on. Problem is our wins aren't against teams that are worth a damn.
Well, look,
Napier needs a quality win.
It's going to happen now. All right, you got four games coming up. Get a couple of those, and then Napier will be the heat will be off the seat, QB. If they win 2 out of the next 4, I don't care what anyone says. I know nobody's thrilled with 6-6 or 7-5, but that'll be enough for people to basically just forget about the new coach situation.
All right, before we get to our picks, and I have a feeling my picks were terrible. I don't even know. But John says,
struggled a little bit.
John on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel, says, how are we feeling about Texas after this past weekend? Look, I think Texas is pretty damn. I think Texas is damn good.
They are not your daddy's Vanderbilt. Gee whiz, how do you not watch that Alabama game and know that? And they played with Texas. They've got physical players. I mean, athletically, Texas is so far ahead of them, and to keep it close, to keep it to 3
Well, Texas had a couple of turnovers that kept the game close.
Well, here's
they don't have those turnovers.
Yeah, and Clark Lee really made I think a misjudgment at the end of the game. He has 5 minutes and 30 seconds left. He's in his own territory on the 30-yard line, and he's down by one full score. He's down 7. And he goes for it on 4th and 6 or 7, And really, if he punts the ball with his 3 timeouts, he gives his defense a chance. But effectively, the game ended right there because all Texas needed was a field goal and made it a 2-score game. So I think Clark Lee made a bad call by going for it with 5.5 minutes to go on his own 30, down 7. He had the ball. He can punt it away. The defense is playing great. Texas was not doing anything in the second half. And if you hold Texas on that possession, you get the ball back with no timeouts and probably 2 minutes or 3 minutes to go, and Pavia can do what he does. But they didn't give him a chance because
Vanderbilt has the worst passing offense I've ever seen.
Well, no, I think you could say Kentucky is in that realm.
Yeah, but I meant from a scheme standpoint.
Okay.
Pavia just makes plays, but the design is just god awful. I mean, it's like Pop Warner stuff. Here, JC, I'm gonna have you answer this because honestly, I fell asleep and didn't see this.
I'll try.
Andy's question: Marcel Reed completely changed the A&M LSU game. Does he start the remainder of the season for the Aggies?
He does.
I would say no.
No.
I would say they both continue to play like they have.
Maybe Wegman was ineffective. LSU figured out how to stop him, but what they didn't figure out was how to stop a running quarterback, and that's what gives Alabama a chance with Jalen Milroe. But Reed ate them alive, and they didn't have an answer for simple plays. QB, it was flag football. This guy took the snap, he looked one way and took off the other. It wasn't that complicated, but it was a very physical game. It was a great environment. It was louder than all hell. And A&M just woke up and turned into a different team with Reed in there, and it energized the crowd. It gave their defense energy, and they swallowed Nussmeier.
JC,
it really killed LSU in that part of the game.
Do you think
I watched the whole game.
The folks from A&M are raising hell today that their coach wore black and their uniforms were black? I'm just asking.
No, they're not raising hell. I just think these teams have traditional colors. Why are you messing around like that? And you've got Miami down there.
Everybody loves these blackouts. I think blackouts are dumb in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And Miami did the same thing. It's goofy. It's goofy as hell.
By the way, the semis still have not scored. They're the only team to not score 21 points on the year.
Horrendous.
Okay. Jason is drinking some Kool-Aid here, JC. He says on YouTube, brought to you by Claude Plum, the Gators will win by 10 Saturday. It will be DJ's coming out party.
I don't know if he's being serious in that text.
Yeah. F45 training merges 3 leading-edge fitness training styles into one 45-minute functional training class. Visit f45training.com to learn more. All right, JC, what was my record? Had to have been terrible.
Well, you went 0-3 in the NFL, and that really killed your record, but you went 8-9. So it wasn't like it was a tragedy. It wasn't a disaster for you. I was 11-6, and I went 3-0 in the NFL. So that was what kind of made it a lopsided. We both did fairly much the same in college. The Alabama game, you had Missouri. You took Ole Miss.
Let me tell you something about that.
I did.
It just blows my mind. So Missouri's backup quarterback, Drew Pine. He was a 5-star, JC. Initially, I think went to Arizona State or either went to Notre Dame first, but he's been to both of those schools. I've seen him play in the last couple of weeks.
What's happening?
Whoever evaluated him needs to recheck their
who's coaching? I know,
he's awful.
But
awful.
He's ineffective. He's totally ineffective. We both whiffed badly on Illinois. We almost pulled off the Michigan State game, but Auburn, we both had them. We both had A&M, and we both had Vanderbilt. Those were big numbers. We both missed badly on Navy. I don't know what the hell we were thinking there.
There's just the athleticism was not even comparable.
Right, correct. And that was obvious. We both had Indiana. Look at the Hoosiers with a backup quarterback. They don't care. They just keep doing what they do. And they're playing at Michigan State. They're about to be 9-0, QB. It's a great story. It's the story of the year right now. And certainly with Ohio State and Will Howard looking very, very pedestrian, let's say. Ohio State damn near and almost could have lost to Nebraska very easily at home. I don't know if they're as great as we all think they are. And I think Oregon right now and Indiana have a grip on that Big Ten championship game, because I wouldn't be damn surprised at all if Indiana went into Ohio State and beat them, QB. Maybe I'm just
when do they play?
Bloviating here, but I really think that's possible. They play in a few weeks. They play Indiana will play Michigan State this week and then comes home to play Michigan. Okay, so they're looking at 10-0, and then they go play Ohio State. So Ohio State's going to be in Happy Valley this weekend, and I'm here to tell you, not that Penn State does a lot for me, because it's like watching somebody paint a house when you watch Penn State play football. But they are physical. They do play a good brand of defense, and it's not a layup for Ohio State by any stretch of the imagination. Not in State College. It will not be as easy as Ohio State fans want it to be. So that's the game of the week coming up this week. And of course, I think they're going to play it at noon. I swear Fox has really screwed us in the ear hole with the noon games. I can't stand it. You've got the best games being played at noon in many cases. And in next week, it really irritates me because the SEC schedule, once again, has the freaking Kentucky Wildcats in primetime. Why are we subjected to watching those guys play?
But I will tell you this.
3 weeks in a row of that crap.
I did before the season, we have to listen to this damn teleconference, all the radio network people and stuff. And I think it was during this teleconference. But the televisions, the broadcasts are now, the big games, JC, are moving to the noon 3:30 spot, not the night games anymore.
Well, I don't know how that works for
everybody. It doesn't make sense to me either. I would rather have the big games at 7:30.
Right. And that's how it's always been. I don't know why that all of a sudden they decided to change that. Ole Miss is playing Arkansas. Okay. Both teams had big wins last week, and you're going to shove them at 11 o'clock in the morning. It's just silliness. It doesn't make sense to me. Florida, Georgia is always at 3:30. Great. But why in God's name are we looking at South Carolina and Kentucky at prime time? That's, to me, always going to be the premier TV spot. You're never going to convince me that big noon, because some guy in the marketing department at Fox wanted to call it that, is now the biggest game of the day. I don't believe it. I don't think it's right. I don't think that's where you see those crowds at Texas A&M lathered up into a frenzy. You think the LSU fans are going to start thinking the big game today is at 11 a.m. It ain't going to work that way. And that's just not right. The TV guys are wrong. And you can tell them that old JC said that when you go in the next meeting. But listen, Penn State, Ohio State at noon is stupid. Play that game in the Big Ten, in Happy Valley at 7:30 at night, okay? Let's get this right, because I don't want to look at Kentucky anymore. This is 3 weeks in a row we got to stick our eyes on Kentucky at 7:30 at night. That's crap. That's not good television. That's garbage. And, it's just, what the hell's another night game we got? A&M and South Carolina, great. Wisconsin, Iowa, who the hell cares? USC and Washington, it's out there. Nobody cares. Louisville, Clemson, Louisville's not any good. So what the hell are we watching? These 7:30 games are awful. So, we got great games on at noon while we're barely awake, getting through the week, and then we're stuck with this big noon garbage that some guy at Fox decided, we're going to put it on noon. So,
all right, JC, take a drink so I can read some of these texts.
All right.
Text on the Titan Mark text line. Tommy says, a rules question: screen pass or any pass completed behind the line of scrimmage, how far can an offensive lineman be downfield, or can they? I thought if a forward pass completed behind the line of scrimmage, lineman could get out front and block. He's talking about the Commanders game. The NFL is different than in college. So even if the ball is thrown behind the line of scrimmage on a screen, whether it's to the running back or a wide receiver, the offensive lineman in the NFL can only be right at a yard downfield. College, it does not matter.
Okay.
The one play that I think he's referring to, I can't remember who did that game, but they were talking about the wrong offensive lineman. I think they were referring to the left tackle, who was only like a yard, but the center had been down the field about 6 yards. So that is a penalty in the National Football League. Daryl says, good morning, guys. This Saturday's game is like the Dumb and Dumber movie for the Gators. Is there a chance? I mean, there's always a chance if the Dogs turn it over a bunch, but they're better than we are. But we gotta capitalize on every chance we have.
Yeah.
And somehow, hopefully, they turn it over.
They turn it over, and you got to hope that somehow number 11 is the guy on their defense that scares me the most. And I don't know where he's come from lately, but he had the game of the year against Texas, and he'll be coming off the edge, Florida. So be ready for Javon Walker.
This text on the Titan Mar text line, Shane, what do you think about James Franklin potentially being the next coach at UF? Seems pretty underwhelming and subpar.
No, that ain't happening. It's not.
Doesn't do much for me, but who knows? So it was Tony Romo and them, but I think they were talking about the wrong lineman that was called for that. All right, here's a text on the Titan MR text line from Jimmy. He says, Shane and JC, I would like to get y'all's thoughts on Anthony Richardson at quarterback for the Colts.
I don't really have many thoughts.
I mean, look, it is.
I
I mean, everybody that watches this show know how I think he's a great kid, but I just don't think he's a very good quarterback. Never have.
Yeah, I don't think the Colts are going to scare anybody or do anything special.
But if they play Joe Flacco, they got a good enough team to win a bunch of games.
Yeah. I mean, this is an experienced NFL Super Bowl winning quarterback who still can move, and he's about 6'6", and he knows how to throw the football. I'm not sure Anthony is quite there yet with his accuracy.
Well, I mean, that's stating the obvious, JC.
Well, that's the guy asked how we felt.
Right. But he also, I saw an interview, somebody sent it to me here when I woke up this morning. I saw it. In his post-game interview, he took himself out because he was tired after a run or something.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
I've never heard of that.
I mean, he had a nice long ball to Downs for about 70 yards in the game, but that was
that's what he's going to do. He's going to hit one of those a game, maybe two, but he'll miss the other 22 throws.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see what he was yesterday. He was.
It was bad.
10,
look at it. Look at it.
Look at this. 10 of 32.
At one time, he was 2 of 17, I think.
Right, with 5 sacks. Is this the guy a 4th-round pick in the draft? I mean, is this really what you get in the fourth pick in the draft? I mean,
these people fall in love with how high you can jump, how far you can throw a ball. Wes's question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon. Shane, would we even go after Dan Lanning? No. Dan Lanning's not going anywhere.
Folks, if they win 2 out of the next 4, they're not going after anybody. Okay, if they lose all 4, then the conversation is.
Yeah, but I mean, think about this.
I'm thinking
Dan Lanning is probably going to be in the playoffs. Okay.
Yes.
Why in the world would Dan Lanning leave Oregon?
Well, that's kind of what I was saying about Lane. When everybody was talking about Lane, we didn't know Ole Miss.
JC, that's a different. That you're talking about different brands here.
I get it, but Oregon, how many national champions? They have the same amount as Ole Miss, don't they?
No, Ole Miss has way more than them, by the way.
Exactly, they don't have any compared to Ole Miss.
Yeah,
so,
but I'm just telling you, you can't compare Oregon and Ole Miss programs either. Okay. Ole Miss is no comparison. Their program is no comparison to Florida and Oregon. It's not even close. And by the way, I cannot tell you how many texts I was getting from my Ole Miss faithful on Saturday. Y'all can have him. We're done with him. Blah, blah. I mean, just kept going on and on and on.
Oh, my. What do they want at Ole Miss? I forgot. They look at 12
and what's crazy is you know how Ole Miss people are. But I had 2 former players that played at Ole Miss and played in the National Football League texting me. I'm tired of him. All he does is run trick plays, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, we'll take him.
Well, there's a guy running the program right now that's still here, and he's like, give him. Let's see what happens in these next 4 weeks. I really believe that. Listen, they're going to play Arkansas this week. You going to take Arkansas? They're 7 points.
Where's the game being played?
It's in Arkansas. I don't care.
I tell you what, it will be a fun game to watch because
it's on at noon.
Let me tell you something. Petrino and them put like 680 yards on Mississippi State the other day.
I know it. It's been a renaissance for that program. It's saved Sam Pittman's job, if you ask me. I don't think they're getting rid of Sam either. And I think they were close last year, but he made a great decision by bringing in somebody that understood offense and how to get the ball in the end zone. And they've got a good little player in Green. So, I mean, he's not little, he's tall. And he's listen, he is a college quarterback. Marcel Reed is a college quarterback. That's who they are, and that's what they do, and they can win a game for you now and then. But defensive coordinators are going to look at the tape, and they're going to figure out down the road how they're going to stop the Marcel Reeds of the world, and I just don't think it's a long-term solution unless he can throw the football. But in that game in the second half against LSU, they had them all twisted, and the crowd went into an absolute frenzy. And that was not a noon game, by the way. And that's how you win games in this league, man. It's crazy, but LSU's made a living off it playing at night on Saturdays. And these these guys are good players, they're good college players, they're athletic as hell, and they can win you a game. But are they going to do it 12 weeks in a row? And that's where I'm not sure. So.
All right, this day in sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Puts a star power to work in your financial life. Campus USA Credit Union. 2011. Baseball World Series, Cardinals beat the Rangers 6-2 Game 7 at Busch Stadium to win the Cardinals' 11th title. The MVP was third baseman David Freese. That's the State of Sports brought to you by Campus USA Credit. By the way,
tell you about this
tonight is Game 3, and the New York
biggest idiot in America. He's got $350 million invested in Garrett Cole, and he's going to go get him. He's going to go get Garrett Cole, who's mowing down these sorry-ass Dodgers. We got the game in hand, and they bring in a dude who hasn't pitched in a month, who they just took off the injured reserve list, whatever, to pitch in the World Series, and he throws batting practice to Freddie Freeman, who only swung it one time, and that's all that was necessary. I didn't sleep Saturday night. What was it? Friday night, Saturday night, or Friday night, whatever the hell it was, game one, and Friday night, and I just don't understand this Aaron Boone idiot. What are you doing? You got Garrett Cole. You pay him $350 million freaking dollars for this moment alone. It's the first time he's been in doing it since he pitched for the Astros and won a World Series. And you're going to go get him to put in Clay Holmes, some asinine pitcher out of the bullpen that can't pitch in the clutch to save his life. It was Yankees are over. It's over. It's 5, maybe 6.
It's over.
It's over. And the last time the Dodgers led the Yankees, by the way, 2-0 was in '77, and the Dodgers lost. But there ain't Reggie Jackson on this lineup, and there ain't Rich Gossage pitching the ball out of the bullpen. It's just a joke, this Aaron Boone. They should have had at least one win in L.A., and that was game one, and they choked it because they had to get Garrett Cole out of the game because he threw 90 pitches. Give me a break, man. You're paying him half the island of Manhattan, and you're going to go get him. It just made me furious. I didn't sleep all night that Friday night.
Okay, well, here, Chris from Mayak on the Titan More text line says, QB, if the Gators put in a 5 wideout package in the off week, who are your 5 wide receivers out there? Okay, good question. Trey Wilson, Elijah Badger, Chim Dike, Aiden Mizell, and then I'd put Tank Hawkins. Let's go play ball.
Is Jaden Ball going to carry it most of the day?
Well, he wasn't in my 5 wide receivers.
No, I know, but on the offense, is that what they're going to use?
I would think so. I mean, yeah. We'll see if we got any we can move those big jokers this week.
I think they can. I've seen Georgia pushed around. I've seen them get pushed around, but I also saw them dominate somebody, and that
they do this right here, JC. They flip a switch whether they want to play or not.
It's
all
true.
Right. Josh in Mississippi says, gentlemen, a sports equinox today will feature pro football, baseball, basketball, and hockey games. From Monday Night Football to Game 3 of the World Series to the NBA and the NHL, there's something for every sports fan this evening.
That's a great observation. Who sent you that one?
That would be Josh in Mississippi.
Way to go, Josh. Post up and get the TV, get the remote, have at it, man. Auburn
tailback. Do you see how many yards the Auburn tailback ran for on Kentucky?
I didn't, but I kept flipping back and forth.
278 yards.
Yeah, the vaunted Wildcat defense.
Yeah, they stink.
Boy, Auburn is not good either, but they did enough to win by a couple touchdowns in that game. And Hugh Freeze.
Speaking of Auburn, you have to see this. So the score was 10-0 the first half. 10-0 Kentucky at halftime.
Right.
Auburn completes a pass, or maybe the quarterback gets sacked. I can't remember. They run Mayday on to kick a field goal to go 10-3.
Yeah.
Not did they didn't have 12 guys on the field.
Yeah, they had
they had 14. Okay. There's a dude lined up in like the victory formation behind the center on a field goal attempt. It was the damnedest thing I ever seen. So we ain't the only team that does that.
Yeah, it was 10-10 at halftime, but
I thought it was 10-0.
Well, they fell behind 10-0 in the first quarter, and then Auburn scored 10 points in the second.
Regardless, they were trying to do Mayday, and they had 14 human beings out there. 14.
I mean, visually, doesn't that just tell you something's wrong when you see 14?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was 10-10. They're going to take visually, yes, but JC, when you're running people on and some people have to get off, it's chaos.
It is chaos. Why wouldn't you practice that during the week? I mean,
well, they do practice it, but in the heat of the battle, some people panic.
That's right. Run out on the field, run off the field. Very hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. But hey, listen, it does. You're right. It's just part of the environment and part of what happens. I was just surprised by a couple of things this weekend, but what Navy turning the ball over 6 times, it just shows you that they were just not ready for that. Notre Dame pushed them around. Missouri's got nothing if they don't have Drew or Brady Cook in the game. Almost said Drew Lock. They don't have Brady Cook in the game. They have nothing. So Missouri's kind of a fraud. And, A&M has a running quarterback that can beat you if you're not ready for it. And Brian Kelly was not ready for it. Now, LSU is a very good – I think they're good. I think they get going, and they're going to be a hard team to handle. But you get them down here coming off a couple of road games, let's call it, Jacksonville and Austin, and then you get them down here and you never know. But they better not make that a noon game. Let's just say that.
Who are you talking about, LSU?
In Florida, yeah.
LSU they can throw the football, man.
No, they can throw it. I'm absolutely right. They can. But boy, they panicked. A&M it was a tough environment. Look at A&M now. They're an undefeated team in the SEC, and they got their now. They better come down quickly because that will not be as easy a game, I don't think, in Columbia Saturday night as they might think it will be. So Carolina is coming off of an open date. Carolina had a dominant win for their standards the last time they played. And even though it wasn't pretty, it was still a great result for them. And they're playing physical football at South Carolina on the defensive front. So that A&M game might be closer than you think. It might be.
Could be.
I mean,
all right.
I don't know if they're going to run all over South Carolina the way they did LSU. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if they'll do that.
Trace says Reed is way better than Wigman. It depends on what kind of quarterback you want.
Right.
Connor Wigman's played really well up to that game.
Yeah.
So,
but he was.
All right. Last thing before we get you out of here, C. Irby asked a question on YouTube brought to you by Quality Plumbing. QB, do you think we start seeing 2 to 3 year NIL contracts in the next 2 years? Additionally, with the path we're on, do you think we'll ever see trades between programs in college football? Well, here's the thing. That's why, you almost have to have 2 to 3 year contracts.
Yeah.
So they can't transfer. That's why, everybody's excited about player X or player Y. All these young players, regardless of what your team is, wait till next year. Well, you don't know if they're going to be on your team next year.
Yeah.
How do coaches? If they sign a contract, maybe they have to.
It's just hard for me to understand how coaches handle discipline. Let's say when the kid can say, "Well, all right, you put me on the bench, I'm out of here." You can't make it easy for them that way. You have to be able to coach them in good times and bad, and they can't just threaten you to leave if they don't like what you're saying to them. That's not coaching. That's wrong. So it's hard. I don't know how these coaches do it. It's impossible almost. So yeah, I'm with you, QB. 2 year deals. Listen, the NFL won't take you unless you've played, what is it, 3? You have to play 3 years of college before you go to the NFL. So
right.
Yeah. So there's a rule. So there you go. Now that's coming from the NFL end, but in college you can make rules. You can make rules, and I don't know why they won't, but maybe they will. Maybe they will. QB. We'll see.
All right, JC.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
we'll talk to you on Wednesday. Have a great day.
All right.
That's JC. Join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Take a quick time out. Come back. We'll be joined by senior writer from FloridaGators.com, Scott Carter. You're watching and listening to PodUp Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, Titan MRI, Meldon Law, Peachland Dental, QC Kinetics, Campus USA Credit Union, Dave & Buster's. Gridiron sponsors, Comfort Temp, UF Bookstores, Quality Plumbing, Silverback Concrete, Rules Ogra State Farm, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, F45, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gator Bait Media, Aikido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, MG&A Wealth, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Nest and Wild, Florida Victorious, Electronics World.
If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless, mimosas, and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Ruse Ogre State Farm Office, a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right. With the right insurance options for you and your family, visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call, 352-240-1779. Back to the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, senior writer, FloridaGators.com. Scott Carter. Good morning, Scott. How you doing, bud?
Hey, good morning, Shane. Have it Monday morning, man. Starting, one of those Monday mornings.
Are you refreshed and ready to go?
I am better than I was probably last Monday. It was a nice little bye week. Had a birthday in the family, so celebrated that. And back to the Gators against Georgia. You've already got your logo up, man. You're ready.
Oh, there's no question. Florida-Georgia weekend. It's a good weekend. Hopefully we can start piling up some wins here on top of one another against these guys. All right, so Scott, obviously they get back to work today. I don't know where we stand on the injury front. Do you think? We'll find out more today, I guess. But Jason Marshall Jr., any idea you think he plays?
No, not from what I'm hearing right now. I would be surprised.
Yeah, I would too.
A lot of guys were kind of rehabbing last week, and just from what I've heard, his doesn't sound that promising at this point. Hopefully Billy will shed a little more light on some of those guys, because as I think we spoke recently, there were 14 guys on the injury report for the last game, and that number continues to grow, and that just makes what the challenge is for this team even more difficult. You've got to have some of your guys out there playing who you're going to depend on. But at the same time, there's a positive in that we're seeing more younger players. And I think that's probably the most important development I've seen lately is, just more younger players getting out there on the field.
Yeah. Andy's question for you on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law. Scott, do you think Billy will incorporate any new plays for Georgia on Saturday?
I wouldn't be surprised if he has one up his sleeve. In these kind of games, the rivalry games, sometimes that swings a game. I still remember the one that Muschamp pulled out on the fake field goal with Mike McNeely scored. That was one of the better ones from the Gators side in recent years. But yeah, would I be surprised? No, not at all. I think he understands this challenge here. You're 4-3, Shane. You got a little bit of momentum coming off that Kentucky win. You've got some time in between this game to hopefully get some guys healthy. He talked about he wanted to duplicate what they did the first bye week after they showed their improvement. That was, turn up the intensity in practice, the urgency level. And now, I think he knows that, hey, these next 4 games, that's what is going to define our season. And so if I'm Billy Napier, yeah, I'm open to that playbook. Anything that I think can help me, I consider it, Shane.
Yeah, and was it last year or the year before when Billy ran it was last year, I believe. Was it the quarterback sneak or the direct snap to ETN for him to throw? I can't remember. But here's the thing. Every time Billy's, and I could be wrong, but it seems like every time he's called a somewhat type trick play, it's backfired. Not that I didn't like the call. Everybody loves the call if it works. They think you're a dumbass if it doesn't work. I get it. But it's like I said, he's been snake bit every time he's called them.
Yeah, he hasn't had a good track record on trick plays with the Gators. And I think when you're in the position they are against a team like Georgia, and then the following week against Texas, any kind of trick plays or different looks that you can have that maybe neutralizes the matchup a little bit or even swings it to your favor, yeah, you have to consider, because that's how you sometimes overcome talent deficiencies, right? With good play call. That's part of coaching. So yeah, you got to, I'm sure he's explored all of his options, and I would not be surprised at all if they they use something, but it's going to go back to the old-fashioned football, Shane. To beat Georgia or Texas, Gators going to have to play well in the trenches, both sides of the ball. I expect that's where those games will be won.
That you bring up a great point. And we dominated, I thought, Kentucky on the line of scrimmages, which has been something we couldn't do the last few years. But it seems like Kentucky may not be great on the line of scrimmages as we thought after what Auburn did to them again. So it's all going to come down to the O-line, D-line play. And, and let's be honest, Georgia has dominated us in that area the last few years.
Yeah, when you look at where Florida has, I think, fallen behind the pack in the SEC in recent years, I think it stands out mostly on the offensive and defensive lines. I mean, you can look at the Gators and say, well, they haven't had a top level quarterback play, since maybe Kyle Trask. Well, they've had enough quarterback play, decent quarterback play to win games. You look at what they have this year. I mean, they're fine, I think, on their offensive skill positions as long as they're healthy. But you got to play strong up front, and they have shown signs of improvement in that area. But I just remember the big games against Georgia, Alabama in the last 10, 12 years. You just never felt Florida matched up well on the offensive and defensive lines there. And I think until that changes, I think we're going to consistently see them struggle in these big games. But again, they've been better lately. And I don't know if Georgia is quite what they have been in recent years under Kirby Smart, but to me, they look like they're starting to peak a little bit. I'm curious to see, Shane, just from a defensive standpoint. I mean, if I'm a Florida defensive guy, I'm fired up for this game because I want to smack Trevor Etienne as hard as I can.
Yeah. Florida Cracker is the brand for original Floridians, great food, Southern hospitality in the center of the universe, Brooksville, Florida, floridacracker.com. We got Scott Carter from floridagators.com on the Titan More hotline right now. All right, this is a great comment here by John on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Allen. I text a good friend of ours, Scott, over the weekend and voiced my opinion on this. He says, what would y'all's opinion be if Florida held a major exhibition basketball game like Arkansas did against Kansas instead of having these secret scrimmages? So I wake up early yesterday and put it on the SEC network to watch Doring and their recap, but I guess it was before they came on. And we got Arkansas hosting Kansas, 25,000 people in Bud Walton Arena.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, why can't we do one of these? And now I was thinking they charged, and obviously they charged money to go to this, but it went to some charity, which is great. But you could have one of these and you can help knock out some NIL money right there, right?
No.
Have Duke come play down here or have North Carolina come play us. Now, there are no more secret scrimmages. That used to be in the past. Even though they call it secret scrimmages, they're legal now. But I don't know if you saw that, Scott, but it was televised and the place was packed. They had commentators going on and it was a easy way to make money.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one thing I've learned about college sports and most industries, quite frankly, is there will be a copycat from that because people saw how successful it was. So it would not surprise me at all to see other schools do that. And quite frankly, from a fan perspective, it's a win-win. It's an exhibition game. You're getting to see your team challenged against another good team. You can go watch it live. Like you said, contribute to maybe an NIL fund or some charity, which is a plus on both sides. And you're right. I would just say, hey, let's do it here this year, and we'll come back and scratch your back at your place next year and work it out with some top teams around the country that normally you don't play in the conference. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and I meant to mention this too. Andy just told us, Mike Morgan, who comes on our program a lot, he broadcast the Ole Miss Illinois game yesterday in Oxford. It was on TV. So
Nice. Okay.
we need to do that. I think we need to host a concert every year. I mean, the money that the University of Tennessee made, and that I could be wrong if we got some Vol fans that watch this, but I believe their Morgan Wallen 2-night concerts, well over 125,000 people at each one of them. I want to say their proceeds went to their NIL package. So why we can't
Yeah.
have concerts in the swamp once a year to help with that makes no sense to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I know they had the Garth Brooks
Right.
concert
I
this.
was at that one. I was at
Yeah, I
that one.
was too in 2019, and that was a great event, a great night. It was before NIL, obviously, but yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of acts that I think can fill the stadium like that. But if you can find one and you can hit on it while it's hot, yeah, it's a great another opportunity that's is not being capitalized right now.
All right, let's see here. Buck says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Metal Law, we have enough speed at receiver to run by most of the UGA DBs. Doesn't take trick plays to take deep shots. We just have to hope the deep shots pay off. Well, we have speed, but those jokers have speed on their back end too. Let's make no bones about it. This is the best defense we have seen all year long. They're very good on that side of the ball. All right, Scott. So when you look at this game coming up, obviously we all know about Georgia. Um, it's a huge stepping stone to see where the Florida program is headed. That's what everybody talks about. Can we stay competitive, against the Georgias? I'm tired of hearing that personally. You got to win the game, right? It's not,
Yeah,
we're not getting participation ribbons anymore.
no. No, you've got to win. I mean, again, this is probably how Georgia talked when Spurrier was at Florida and when you played. Let's see where we are this year. Let's hope we can hang close. Well, guess what? Florida fans made fun of them for that, right? And so Georgia fans are probably making fun of Florida fans now for that same mentality. And the only way you change it is to beat them. And it happened back in 2020 in the COVID year. That's the one of the few times in the last decade it has happened. But eventually you have to win these games and make these recruits look at your program in a different light because this generation of young football talents, they don't know anything but Florida as being kind of mid-level SEC. I mean, they don't remember the Tebow years. They don't remember the Spurrier years. It's all in the history books for them. So right now, you're trying to kind of define your program for the modern generation. And when you think about the college football playoffs, Shane, I mean, I'm so glad it's 12 teams. I always thought it should have been more than four. But if you'd asked me back in 2014 when the college football playoff came into existence, I mean, I'm certainly thinking the Gators are going to crack that thing in the first decade of its existence. And unfortunately, we didn't. So that just sums it up to me like, okay, this is the challenge. I mean, you've got to elevate your program to get it back where it needs to be. You got to win these games. And again, I don't know if this matchup is looking great in that respect. I do believe that the Gators are playing better. I think they have a strong locker room. I think they've made some improvements since that first bye week. And I think when you look at this game, I think Florida, for it to have a successful game, I think they're going to have to kind of have some similar scenarios unfold against Kentucky. And specifically, I'm talking about turnovers. They had those 3 picks. First time the Gators have had 3 interceptions in a game since 2020. It'd been a while. So you add that. Carson Beck, if there's one knock on him, he is susceptible to the turnover. So I think if the Gators can factor in some turnovers to their advantage in this game, their chances of surprising a lot of people go way up. And I know that's common for most games, right? But in this game specifically, I think it really matters.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you just said. Um, Scott, I want to talk about last thing here, and we'll let you go. I think you brought up a great point because, players of today, for whatever reason, I don't want to say they don't care about what's happened in the past. They just don't know, and it's a different world, right?
It is. It
Because
is.
I have so many former teammates from different eras. These kids don't understand what it's like to be a Florida Gator. They don't understand, this, that, and the other. They don't because they don't care. It's a different world. It's about are we winning and how much are you going to pay me? If you're not going to pay me, I'm going to another school. You see it happen year in and year out, regardless if it's at Florida or another school, kids bouncing around. And I just don't know, until we get back to winning consistently, I think it's going to be hard to get kids to not buy in is the right word. It's just a different way that kids think today. Does it? I don't know if I explained that very well, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's advantages there for them that didn't exist a few years ago, and I get the whole big picture. I mean, I'm glad these guys can earn some of the piece of the pie. I've never been against that. What I hope that can find some stability is the system and have some infrastructure to where it does mean something for a guy when he signs to come to play with the Gators, that he, even though he's getting paid, it still means something to be there and to have the resources and the connections that you can have there. And I would hope that's the same goal at Georgia and Michigan and all these other big schools, because if you're winning like Georgia has in recent years, Alabama, Clemson, let's face it, they're having less of these issues than the non-winners. I mean, a lot of those guys have stayed at those schools for under those coaches because there's been stability. Florida has had trouble building that stability, so we've seen a lot of comings and goings. And we talk about this, Shane. Like, what are these guys going to do? Like in 10-year anniversary, like there's team anniversary. I mean, where are they going to go? They're going to go to that school, that school, or that school, because they went to all three of them. So it's created a lot of situations like that, which I don't really know benefit anybody, I guess, except the player, because he got a little bit more money to go to school A than school B. But in the end, long term, it might not be as beneficial as they think. And I think until that gets understood and kind of becomes more of a tradition, I think you're going to just continue to see what we've seen the last 3 years.
Okay, last question here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law from Chris. Says, Shane, you and Scott hit upon a valid point. It seems like the Gator fan base is becoming comfortable with mediocrity. People are accepting of 6-6. What's the benchmark for Napier next year to keep his job 8-4? At what point do we have to compete for a championship? Look, the competing for the championship doesn't bother me. I just think Florida should be winning 8, 9, 10 games a year. And maybe it's because I was here in the Spurrier era. He was here 12 years. Not one player that played for him, every player won at least 9 games. That was the minimum games they won in their each year. So I think that's the benchmark for me. I'm not saying we have to go to Atlanta, but now with the 12-team playoff, you can go 10-2 and get into the playoffs. So that's where I stand on that. I don't know if that. What do you think, Scott?
No, I think in the modern landscape that is college football and the 12-team playoff, and let's face it, eventually the playoff system will be even expanded again, whether it's a 16 or 20. That's just the way this is going to work. So I think you can definitely get into the playoffs at 10-2. I think even a 9-3 record in some years will get you there. But I kind of agree with you. I think at Florida, 9 wins should almost be mandatory because of the resources you have. And what I think Billy Napier is doing a good job on, I think, is reestablishing some of that culture in terms of making these recruits realize what kind of resources and connections you really do have at Florida, because it's unbelievable now, even compared to when you played, or even when I first started here in 2010. It's a different program. It's a different set of resources. So in those areas, it's really positive. But we all know, I mean, what the product on the field always is going to determine success. I mean, that's the life that a coach signs up for. So until you do that consistently and get players to see that consistently and to sign the best players, or at least some of the best players in the country consistently, you're not going to get those results. So I just think that's the uphill battle right now. It's been that way for a while. There's steps, there's progress being made. But yes, ultimately, I think Florida should be at least a 9-win program every year.
Yeah, especially now that you play 12 regular season games. Back in the days, we only played 10 or 11. So
hey, if you lose one of those early games, hey, that's fine. Like even if I'm an Alabama fan this year, and as bad as it is, man, we've already lost 2 games, and I'm probably drinking more and kicking my dog more, all that stuff. Hey, you still have a pretty good chance to make the playoffs if you win out. So that's what I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You can lose some of those games. So
yeah. Scott, good stuff as always, my friend. Appreciate your time. We'll see you in Jacksonville.
All right, Shane. Have a good one, buddy.
That's Scott Carter. Join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Last one here. Norseman says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. QB, what advice would you be giving Lagway all week on game day about this game and environment? Just go. It's like any other game. Just go play. He doesn't know about this rivalry. He grew up in Texas. I didn't know about it either. You don't really understand it until you start playing in it. But just go play and have fun. That's all you got to tell them. Florida victorious, proud NIL partner of the Florida Gators. Join today to help make Florida victorious. Appreciate everybody joining the program. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Take care.